Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're thrilled to have on the show founding member of the hit rock band INXS. He's also the founding member of a new bass company that launched in 2021, GGB Bassist, and he has a new band, AshenMoon. Garry Beers, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
You know what? I'm so glad we got to catch up in California a few months ago, and you allowed me to play all of your new basses and everything. But let's talk about AshenMoon first, because you've kind of had a history of putting together hit bands and supergroups, even back to Absent Minds. But now with AshenMoon, we were talking, you guys released an album in 2022, and now it's kind of re-releasing.
Yeah. It was Absent Friends, by the way, not Absent Mind.
Absent Friends. Thank you. That's my Absent Mind.
Pretty good slip, No, I've always enjoyed playing music outside of INXS, and obviously, with INXS taking a hiatus for a long time, I really got a chance to really revisit, my music that I've been writing for years. It's all sitting in my computer, and and I met up with Toby Rand about 6-7 years ago at a party, and we hit it off, and we started writing together. So we really got serious about it just before COVID hit. So we made the record during COVID, and then tours got cancelled like everybody else in the world, and release dates got put back. So we're kind of rebooting it this year. We sort of took a little break from it. Just let the world get back to some kind of normality, and now we're just revisiting it all now. But first single's coming out. It's going to be called God Tank, of the 2024 version of AshenMoon. So we're looking forward to that.
Well, I'll tell you what, listening to the past tracks too, Garry, to where I really like it's kind of more rock and edgy. It's certainly modern rock music that you guys are doing with AshenMoon. So certainly with all the bands you've been in with the past, and certainly the other artists that you've written songs with and produced with, definitely a forward rock sound, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think Toby Rand is my co-writer. He's my singer and co-writer, and the band is he and I and other great musicians that we bring on board at the time. But we've always had a passion for I've personally have always been just the biggest fan of Zeppelin and also Jeff Buckley and obviously the Beatles. So we're putting sort of all that together, and Toby's a fan of everything as well, and probably the best singer I've worked with for a very long time. So we're just listening to what's going on today, and also our heads are firmly back in the classic rock days, and and the 80s as well. I mean, you can't help. I'm really glad the 80s is getting a bit of a good vibe now, or everyone's like, the 80s were great.
Right now it's like before it was like everybody was going back to the 60s and 70s, rock music and different music, and now it's like going, wow, the 80s were a great time, and you and I are like, yes it was.
Yeah. Like during the 90s, like the 80s were like the redheaded stepchild, and it's like now everyone's loving the 80s again. So it's good for me. I mean, it's good to hear INXS music blasting all over the place, but just for me, it's just fun to write music that I don't need to worry about boundaries or any sort of I'm not sort of beholden to a record label or whatever, because these days everything's done in house, as you can see behind me. So
right with the shed, and you're preparing to build the new shed.
Yes, I'm packing up. I actually packed up all my outboard gear yesterday, so I'm moving the shed. I'm hiring a truck today and going to start loading stuff out, because at the moment this is my garage at my new home. My wife and I and the family moved down to Orange County end of last year. So this shed has not worked out very well, because it's right next to the kitchen, and there's a refrigerator behind me, and so it's not really. I got my office, my studio, and my little video area, and it's not working at all. So as of today, I'm getting the keys to a new office space, so it's gonna be great.
Awesome. So then, so you're saying that the current space is not similar to the Mangrove studios that you designed in Australia, then? There's
no, sorry to cut you off there. But no, Mangrove was an extremely special studio space, because it was my home for 20 years. I lived there at Mangrove on 25 acres, and I built 2 studios. One was a commercial one with accommodation for people to come up and stay, because it's about an hour and a half north of Sydney, and just up in the mountains, basically. So, and then I had my home, and then I had my personal studio, which I just kept building more rooms onto. So, but I actually, for the first time in since I sold it in 25 years, I was in Australia last year, and I actually went and visited, dropped in, and the gentleman who's just bought it and lives there with his family invited me to drop in. So he's running the studio as a studio, and my old studio as a school.
Wow.
So, yeah, and my Harrison desk, my 4032 Harrison desk, it's the same desk that the Thriller was done on and all the stuff at Westlakes, but mine's
Right.
it's still sitting there. So one day I might go and grab it back, but it's but yeah, but it's just great to see that my old space being used, like a family living there again, and it being used as a school and a proper studio, because it's a great studio, and
Historical.
it really is. Yeah, and a lot of great Silverchair, INXS, a lot of great something, Kate, a lot of great bands recorded there, and it was fun. It was great fun to have my mates and new mates sort of recording and staying up at the other end of the property. So it was just all fantastic days,
Well, speaking of fantastic days, you launched your bass company back in 2021. So you and I connected, and you walked me through your new basses that you're doing for GGB basses, and they're just incredible. But I want you to talk about this too, Garry, to where these are kind of designed off of Old Faithful, your original 58 Fender Precision, but also with some modern twists and some modern colors. You got to talk about this, because I know this bass line is taken off now.
Yeah, this is my new favorite. This is obviously a custom jazz bass shaved it all off, so it's much lighter, shaved off the bottom horn. And yeah, it's just I just chose colors from instruments that I've seen or owned or drooled over in my life, and just made them as historical as I could, as far as colors and wild 50s colors and early 60s, and I'm just very happy with them, because I've got three body shapes, and there is a fourth one which will be a replica of Old Faithful with my patented pickup in it and sound system. But yeah, I just wanted to build a bass. The actual bottom line of the pickup is you can get 5 different vintage bass sounds out of the one pickup, with no batteries and no tomfoolery. Just very simple.
And they sounded amazing. I got to bring up too, Garry, to where some of our viewers may not realize this, but you started out in wood shop, as a teenager, and were building your own basses, doing electronics. We just know you as being a founding member of INXS, but it's like, but you've been doing this for years, and then you finally made the decision to launch this company.
Yeah, I did woodwork all through high school, and I've always been a tinkerer. I've always been not very good at it, but I've always been enough to cut a body shape or round out a hole for a pickup, or butcher another bass. And electronic, I thought I was going to do electronics because it was the new big thing. Back when I left school, so I did 2 years of electronics, studying at a college. Before I realized I was colorblind enough to not be able to read the little bands of color on resistors and capacitors, which means you can go from you can actually blow shit up, really, because so it didn't matter, because at that time the band had really formed, and that had become the love of my life. So I just left the tech and drove to Western Australia with the rest of the guys and started the Farris Brothers in Perth.
Well, and what's so interesting to me too, that some people may not know, Garry, is that you worked with a number of major manufacturers over the years, also designing basses and amplifiers and effects and everything else before you launched your own company with GGB.
Yeah, over the years, I've worked with Mate in Australia. I've worked with Peavey, Ibanez, Ampeg. I reached out and reached out to Ampeg, which was just at the time just bought by St. Louis Music, and became really good friends with the son of the owner, and his name's Ted Kornblum, and he used to come on tour with us, and we worked on. I designed cabinets, and the whole idea of them re-releasing the old Tolex reverb rockets and flip top bass amps was my idea. So I didn't get any money for it, but it was my favorite. The flip top, the B15. still got one somewhere in the mess in here, but they are still the best bass amps. For, you just plug in and they sound amazing, you know. And yeah, so Ted became a great mate, and he's now the owner of Magnatone amp, amps, which are just killing it. But yeah, and I've always, you know, it goes on Fender, G&L, it just goes on and ESP, and I just can't help myself as far as being a tinkerer and a designer. And you know, I've worked with some great companies, and now I just decided to start my own because you know, it just gets to a point where you want to just take that extra step and have total control. So
And I wanted to ask you too, Garry, you know, with these new basses, and I enjoyed playing all the different models that you had, and I know you're going to be launching more, including the Old Faithful, the replica of your well-known bass. But it's like, who do you think, you know, player-wise, who are you aiming these at? And obviously the website looks great, but, you know, are they going to go into stores? Or are they just going to be on the line? And how are you going to work all of this?
You know, it's ironically, I'm still working that out. I mean, it's you know, I got the I built all of the early prototypes myself, and all the paint jobs, and designed the pickup, built the pickup, and then handed the pickup over to proper pickup makers, because making a pickup is next to impossible. Like, I'm amazed I got the prototypes built to get the patent. So and I built like 14 prototype basses of like 5-string, 4-string fretlesses, everything I wanted to do, even a student model, the 3/4 size. But and then I discovered a company. I heard about a company called Iconic Guitars in Carlsbad, California, which is ironically near where I live now. We moved down here not for that reason, but we're 20 minutes away. And they can hand build to my specifications, my basses. So they, you know, the first basses only arrived in November. So, yeah, so the ones I was showing at NAMM were just like brand new, and so yeah, and then yeah, I just had the hard part. I mean, building the bases seems to be the easy part. It's the marketing and the the all business part, which I'm learning and bringing more people on board to handle that. So I've got meetings this week for more new marketing people. Unfortunately, there's not many like stores around anymore. Where people can just go and plug in and play. It's just it's and I noticed that in Australia when I was back there. There's all the music stores I used to hang out and, you know, play and chat and meet people are all gone. So that's everything's online now. But I will be, you know, you can come to my office in my new shed down here in San Clemente, and you can have a play. But I'm getting into certain stores because people need to play, and at the moment it's very much online through the website.
That's a great website. Well, I wanted to bring up some of your history too, that some people, you know, certainly we know what you accomplished with INXS and what you're doing, you know, with AshenMoon and everything. But starting out, you know, Dr. Dolphin, was that really the best choice for the band before? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because, yeah, like we all think, oh, the Farris brothers, what you know, it's better change that.
That was the name after Dr. Dolphin.
I know, yeah. Oh, don't worry. I had my school band with my two best friends. We all played guitar, and we had a bet that whoever was the worst guitar player would play bass, and that was me. I lost, and I got crappy bass, and became the only bass player in the area. So I got the Farris brothers to sort me out, and I joined them. But before that, the school band I was in was called Legolas Elven Warrior.
Right. Yeah, that was from like 1974, 75.
Yeah, that was at school, and then I met Andrew and Michael, and it was Dr. Dolphin, which, you know, was a fun band. We used to play around the pubs, and they more so the surf clubs, and it was a 4-piece and now 5-piece, and our drummer was this like surfing hippie, and he used to have acid flashbacks in the middle, like and then I thought, sorry, dudes, you know, and he used to practice in his parents' living room while they were sitting, you know, in their chairs, just going, Yeah, it was really fun days, you know.
But it's amazing to me also looking back at your history, Garry, to where, you know, coming from those early bands and then what developed into INXS, and that you guys really paid your dues. I mean, you know, launching there in Australia with so many other competitive rock bands, and then you guys took on America, you know, came to the US when a lot of bands were not up to that challenge, but you guys were.
Well, we thought we'd do it a bit differently. Like most bands from Australia go to England, you know, the mother country, and we kind of were more, obviously we loved English bands and etc. And absorbed some influence there, but we were really into American funk and like bands like Little Feat were bands that learned, still my favorite band, and it was Zeppelin's favorite band. And that's where you learned a basic groove and we incorporated that with the rock that we'd learned playing the hardcore Australian pubs, where you get people moving or you get dragged off stage, literally. And also you're supporting bands like Midnight Oil and Cold Chisel and Rose Tattoo and just really hardcore great bands, and the Angels. I mean, my God, if you don't get people moving at an Angels concert, you just got to die. So we learned the trade there, and then we just put our eyes on America and just came to America. And our manager was Chris, the late Chris Murphy, was very smart. He managed bands that peaked in Australia and then looked at America or England, and by that time they didn't want to start all over again. So we'd had some success in Australia. We just released Shabu Shabar and The One Thing, and then we went to America. And then we were still hungry and energetic and good enough to blow anyone off stage. That was we had the Australian attitude of whoever's supporting, look out. And then sadly for Adamant and even our friends men at work, we just went there to steal audiences. That's what we did.
But that's what you guys became known for, and certainly with the with the bottom end, with bringing the bass and the percussion, which INXS really became known for. When you guys would hook that sound and that groove to where you were constantly winning international awards for like best live band and everything. And it's not bad when Freddie Mercury from Queen is a huge fan of yours and is watching the band on side stage and goes, "Hey, will you guys come and tour with Queen?"
Yeah, that was. I mean, you imagine a bunch of kids from the North Shore of Sydney, surfing by day and playing by night, and it was the last minute. Do you guys want to support Queen? Be the first on at Wembley Stadium? We're like, oh shit, yeah. And the reason was that the band that was quite a well-known band with a girl singer, I can't remember their name right now, but they because it was 2 concerts and they did the first one, and they got pelted off stage, like just fruit, whatever was in people's hands was so we're like, yeah, we'll do it. And we just the thing is, someone's going to throw something, but you just don't throw it back. Just ignore it and play. And it was really good. And then we're off stage going, wow, that was amazing. We're playing Wembley Stadium, which is the most iconic. It's gone now, but the most iconic. Right. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Freddie marches in with any stage gear with his microphone. Just said that. With his lift, and that was great. And just it was just like one of those moments you never forget. And then next thing you know, we're touring Europe and England with them, and they're just lovely guys. I mean, Brian May and his wife were just sweethearts. Brian would get there like 3 PM and just practice and play, and he had a special room, and so we're always hanging out with him, and they just welcomed us, and they had the best parties and dinners. And ironically, when I went to Mangrove, my old studio, the guy who owns it runs out, goes, "Oh, I found this stuck in the floorboards," and it was a picture like of me sitting at dinner with Queen.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and it's like, oh, wow. So I posted that on online and stuff. But it's just you just don't forget those moments. I mean, playing with Queen, learning Queen's craft, because they were absolute consummate performers,
right?
And it was just one of those things you never forget, and I'm very, very happy to have to been part of it.
Well, and I always appreciated you for your bass playing and your timing, your songwriting, and everything else. But also, what you don't get credit for a lot of times, Garry, is that you were kind of the memory and the data bank for INXS, to where when people might forget licks or lyrics, you were the guy that was providing these on stage because you were known as the one who remembered all the details.
I think a lot of bass players are like the data bank for bands, but especially with me and INXS, because Tim Farris and I would be on this side of the stage, and we were kind of like the meat and potatoes, the guitar riffs and stuff, and Andrew and Kirk on the other side doing the keyboards, and Kirk's more esoteric kind of guitar and sax. But it's just funny because, like, in the heat of the moment, playing to thousands of people, Michael might forget what's the next line and just look at me, and I'm always singing, mouthing the lyrics anyway, because a good bass player plays around the lyrics. You learn that from people like Paul McCartney and Sting, and so I'm always mouthing the lyrics. So I just mouth the next line. He's go, and Tim Ferriss be like, what? I'm like, it's in C. Oh, just forget stuff,
But it's so incredible that you're just kind of like behind the scenes making all this happen. Besides holding down the bottom end.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just the thing is, my playing is quite simple. I mean, I'm no flashy guy like Flea, or I can do it, but I'm in a band with 2, sometimes 3 guitar players. Like Suicide Blonde is 3 guitar players, so the bass line's just got to be just simple as maybe one little show off bit, one. Allow myself, but it's more just being part of the we call the drums, bass, and Andrew on guitar or keyboards the engine room, and
right, and they've all got to be hooked though too, Gary. I mean, you guys were so tight that it's like even if anything else fell apart, the foundation was there.
Yeah, John and I had a psychic connection. I mean, I started playing with John when he was like 12. And I was like 17. Well, he was 13. I was 17. It's a 4-year difference. So and I remember the first time we played together, it was like I was hallucinating because I'd never played with a drummer before. John Farris, and even as a kid, even as a 13-year-old, he was amazing. He's always the most talented guy in the band until Michael really learned to sing and Andrew really learned to write and play like all the classic songs, but he was always the best drummer in the area. So it was great to learn my bass craft as part of a rhythm section with John. And I just saw him recently. He's like, I really miss playing with you. And it's like really good to hear because I miss playing with him.
Right.
We were solid and we hated flams. Like it was tight as a fish's bum, as we used to say. But it's just great. And Andrew's right hand on guitar, Andrew Farris, who wrote all the songs. He's like got the right hand of it, like a Talking Heads or a Prince. Like it's just
right.
That's like a major part of our sound is Andrew's right hand on the rhythm stuff. And everything else just all we call Tim, Kirk, and Michael out front, the pointy end, and they're out doing the show stuff. I mean, I'd venture down the front every now and then, but I didn't like being away from the drums. I mean, I just didn't like being, being in control of what's going on at the bottom.
Well, I've got to ask you this too, with obviously your incredible memory and with everything, there's been talk or rumors that you may be considering like a memoir or something down the line. Is there any truth to this?
Yeah, I've done some like keynote speaking stuff. I was just sort of dabble in that. So I started writing all that sort of stuff for the teamwork and stuff. And the more I wrote, the more I thought, and I've got diaries too. Kirk's got diaries of every day of his life. I got some diaries from the great days, and I kind of stopped because I was having too much fun, and and so and I've got the memories of all the great times and the funny things, and so I started writing bits and pieces, and I will be putting out a book or a memoir, hopefully this year.
Wow. I mean, well, and I want to make sure too for our viewers, Gary, with AshenMoon, with new music coming out and you guys getting out on tour, also with the bass line, which I loved all of the basses that you let me play with GGB. What are the 2 websites? Look at that, the great looking headstock and everything. So what are the websites that our viewers should go to for AshenMoon and for GGB basses?
Well, AshenMoon is AshenMoon Music. So it's one word, one long word, AshenMoonmusic.com. And we're in the process of revamping that. It's actually really good. We've got an Australian manager now. We're looking to tour Australia because there's 2 Australians, and we just did a concert in Vegas playing Australian music. We had another Australian in the band, so there's 3 Australians playing to drunken Australians because there was 25,000 Australians in Vegas a few weeks ago they brought the rugby league over, and including my team, Manly.
Right. Well, and you are a fan of rugby and golf and other things,
Tragic rugby league fan. Go Manly. And so we're really pumped because I think we've got a really good team together to get AshenMoon out there. So
awesome.
AshenMoonmusic.com, and the basses is just GGB basses.com. So obviously it's Garry Beers, but ggbbassist.com. So that's the two websites to look at.
And we'll have to be, following you on social media and the website also, Garry, for the upcoming memoir. You might find more of those great pictures with you and Queen and the myriad of other bands and musicians that, you've worked with over the years, like Scott Weiland and everything else. So I definitely a book I would want to read.
Well, yeah, and I've always been the guy with the video camera and the camera, and there's always the guy saying, can you stop videoing? And in the end, we all had video, like the great big, boombox kind of ones.
Right.
Yeah, I've got all that footage and I've digitized it, so that'll be. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but that's all. All that very private stuff of our tours. I'm going to be looking at releasing at some point too. So, yeah, I'm just really in the point of, I felt like I've been asleep for a couple. COVID, I guess, was I had nothing to do but look after my kids and get them through Zoom school, which was like horrendous. But we got through it, and now it's like really, really, really excited to get everything moving again.
It seems like you're in a renaissance. I'll tell you what, I love the new music with AshenMoon, and certainly as we talked about with GGB basses, incredible pickups, so many different sounds and the playability, and the upcoming memoir that you're working on in your spare time and the new studio. So Garry Beers, thank you so much for joining the show.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.